Was Frutiger Aero as good as we really remember it? Frutiger Aero. Frutiger Aero. Frutiger Aero. Sounds like a Febreze scent. Well, there is not technically a scent. If there is a scent associated with Frutiger Aero, it would have to be the soft soap scent with the fishes on it. This is a staple in the aesthetic of Frutiger Aero. Frutiger Aero was around starting in the early 2000s. It was kind of the dying age of what the 90s art style kind of looked like, and transitioned really into what the early 2000s would be. We had major telltale signs of this evolution in style with things such as Windows 95 or Windows 98.
Welcome to the Microsoft Windows 95 video guide. This unique program will help teach you how to use many of the most important features of the new Windows 95 operating system.
This is Jennifer Aniston. I'm Matthew Perry. We're here to see Mr. Bill Gates about a possible starring role in the video guide to Microsoft Windows 95.
The evolution in the way things look, more technological and blocky, or not as blocky, more rounded. Frutiger Aero was around in the early 2000s. I want to say from like, a lot of people remember Frutiger Aero around the time of Windows XP. Windows XP is like the quintessential Frutiger Aero era, really. The aesthetic that's associated with Frutiger Aero is more of a shimmering, glossy, almost ovalisque dystopia, an aesthetic that was very bloated, very bubbly. The comparison I would make for Frutiger Aero would be like a grassy field with bubbles, and inside those bubbles are cityscapes that will never be built. That's kind of that's the essence of Frutiger Aero. And the question is, was Frutiger Aero really that good? I remember back in the day, I think the first computer that I really got my hands on was a Windows 98. And I remember the aesthetic of Windows 98 where everything had like sharp edges. It was very digital. It was like a digital kind of aesthetic to it where it still felt kind of very computery, like computer. Like in the 90s, you had like the digital things, and then you had real things. And they really combined the two. Like with the Windows 95 or Windows 98 computer systems, every single one of them has that weird beige and a digital looking screen, like an old screen from like a movie or something, like something from Alien. Alien was a movie in the 70s, and they had like futuristic technology in that movie. And that's kind of what the 90s were like. I'm not saying that they predicted what the future of digital technology would look like, but they weren't entirely wrong. With Frutiger Aero was the shift of the digital age into the commercial age. Frutiger Aero is Windows 98, Windows 95 gone corporate. Like the digital and weird, like a weird monolith looking system with digital looking things on the screen, got a business job and started putting on a suit to work every day. The aesthetic. I'm talking about the aesthetic. And everything became glossy and very like dreamlike. It was dreamlike. It was a digital dream where everything was in the clouds. Not to compare video games or anything, but the aesthetic kind of took a BioShock Infinite kind of turn, where everything was in the sky for some reason. There's cities and buildings everywhere, and this bubble-ish like the cloud. There's like clouds, and then there's like a office building, and there's stuff in it, and there's like a sound to it as well. I guess there's a sound. But I grew up in like the Frutiger Aero age. Whether or not Frutiger Aero was like as good as we remember or as bad as we remember, I really do think we kind of peaked aesthetically with Windows 7. It really incorporated everything. Windows 7 is kind of forgotten about today, but Windows 7 was the peak of everything. It really was. But growing up, I noticed like these things that were around like aesthetically. I think Frutiger Aero was responsible for me like noticing things being aesthetic, apart from early 90s Nickelodeon shows. I mean, you can't mistake that. There was definitely someone in a office like banging on a desk saying, "This is the way it needs to be. It just looks cool. It looks cool." Almost as cool as movie rental carpet or bowling alley carpets or movie gallery carpets. We had Movie Gallery, and the carpets looked insane. I think that really represents what the 90s aesthetic was. But Frutiger Aero, there wasn't like a carpet to represent Frutiger Aero. There really wasn't a building to represent Frutiger Aero, except for like I said, corporate business buildings kind of represent Frutiger Aero. And what the arts that they had in those buildings were kind of abstract. So it was like a empty building with a round chair in the shape of Play-Doh. It's pretty much Play-Doh in a corporate building. A corporate building where business suits are getting deals done and they're sitting on Play-Doh chairs. That's Frutiger Aero. But it was represented in a lot of things, like again, soap bottles. Everyone remembers the soap soft bottle of the fishes, like the clownfish. This is before Finding Nemo. This is like right before Finding Nemo. Like I said, early 2000s. I think Finding Nemo, they didn't know that they were doing it at the time, but they were making a movie about Frutiger Aero. If only they had like some Windows vaporwave music behind it, then that would be too meta. That would have changed the game. The world would be different now. I would be talking to you with a mohawk made of diamond studs if Pixar did that in Finding Nemo. If they had vaporwave in Finding Nemo and they really hit the gas on Frutiger Aero, I would be sitting here today with blue skin and a paper hat. You know, I thought that was funny. I thought it was funny. I might cut it out, but I thought it was funny. I'm gonna leave it in. But was it good? Windows XP, I mean, the desktop background of Windows XP is another Frutiger Aero thing. I don't want to say that this is part of Frutiger Aero, but I like the pinball 3D, space pinball. That might have been responsible for Frutiger Aero. As much as people want to deny it, I think for sure that space pinball was definitely a part of the Frutiger Aero aesthetic. A lot of people are dissonant, and a lot of people are for it, and I don't know if it was like the best aesthetic, but it definitely got us to sort of see what aesthetic even is. Like I said, it caught my eye. It catches my eye more than, like, you know, I don't know, Jackson Pollock or art people. Like I'd rather look, especially at the time, and really even now, I'd rather look at a Frutiger Aero-esque aesthetic desktop background instead of some of the paintings of the Renaissance era. I mean, the Renaissance era has some pretty dope art, considering for the time. I guess that was the Frutiger Aero of the time, the Renaissance era. Before that, you had pastel Crayola paintings of biblical times that was supposed to be phenomenal. And then out of nowhere, you get people like Rembrandt, Da Vinci. You get the paintings of the Sistine Chapel. Just out of nowhere. That was the Frutiger Aero of its time, was the Renaissance era. For sure. Probably. I don't really know. The essence of it really is kind of making a comeback recently. I've seen the sort of comeback tale of Frutiger Aero. It's being more exposed. I'm kind of late to the party of talking about it, but I didn't even know there was a word for it. And overall, I think with the combination of the vaporwave scene, which really kind of died out and kind of went meta or what have you, and then the re-emergence of Frutiger Aero, it might have the potential to create something new in the world of aesthetic and what can be considered modern aesthetic and different enough to create a cultural shift. Kind of a bold statement, but I really do think that there is a lot of potential in sort of the realm of the two spheres of what was created aesthetically in Vaporwave, which was more of like a 80s, 90s, a culmination of all that good stuff, and then Frutiger Aero, which is very, you know, a very like thing, and then merging those two together would be, which a lot of people are doing, I think there's a lot of like cool things to come of it. I would say that the future of what is going to be aesthetic and pleasing to the ear, I guess, I think the reemergence of just exposing what the aesthetic was in the early 2000s and then what we have now in terms of aesthetic music can really give a light to what the future can kind of hold for the sort of community around aesthetics, or the people that kind of know what aesthetic is and Frutiger Aero's potential can be in the modern age. For the early 2000s, the fact that it did go corporate, Frutiger Aero in corporate buildings is kind of like, I don't know, cringe. With the internet in the state that it is today, and some of the things that are like culturally accepted and considered hip and cool and aesthetic, where it's just colorful for the sake of being colorful, it's like they got people that aren't in the pursuit of something good get all these cans of paint, and then they throw all of them into one bucket, and then it becomes muddy, or like rainbow puke. I remember there was one time where I was at a party, or not at a party, but I was doing an experiment, and I ended up puking a lot, and it was rainbow puke, and it did not feel good. I've puked up a rainbow before, and it did not feel good. So like kind of like the state of where things are in a way of like culture, I think something like Frutiger Aero and late stage vaporwave has a resurgence around the corner if the people that are really trying to take control of creating something new and good. I think that's where it can be. I'm kind of in like a atmospheric D&B drum and bass kind of thing. Like I've been listening to a lot of that, and it's kind of older stuff, but there's definitely elements of what can be put into something modern and a lot of those kind of like tracks. And I think some people now are trying to figure out what the Frutiger Aero scene would kind of sound like, and a lot of people are playing around with like the vaporwave kind of ambiance of it, and like the feel of how vaporwave was, and trying to implement elements of Frutiger Aero. And I think there's a lot of potential, and I think exposing some of those older eras that may not even be looked back on fondly, and in some people's eyes, there's still something there. There's elements there that can be a cultural shift if done the right way, where it's not looked at for like monetary gain or attention, but only to bring attention to the scene of it and how it is really just something pleasing that is kind of lost in time right now, or kind of in history, where it was kind of buried under growing aesthetics of simplicity. Like simplicity and logos currently are the complete opposite of what Frutiger Aero was representing. I mean, look at the Windows logo right now, and look at it, what it was. That was the Windows 7 logo, I get it, but I think you guys know what I mean. So I don't know. Was it good back then? It was okay back then, and it became outdated. That was the thing. It became outdated super quick, because the times were kind of changing into more clean aesthetic. A good example of that would be the transition from the original Xbox 360 to what the Xbox One looked like. You guys remember that? Not a lot of people may remember it, but that was the shift. That's how you knew that things that looked a certain way are going to change. I don't know how to describe that in a sense of other things, but there are other things that kind of represented that too. Baggy clothes went from baggy clothes to tight clothes, and now we're in this like weird limbo of tight clothes and big jackets and oversized shoes. So I don't know what to make of that, but Frutiger Aero, it's nice. It is nice, and I think it does have potential. Yeah, just a random thought that I had. If you like the damn video, subscribe to the damn channel. Oh, whatever.
I mean, the atmosphere resonates with anticipation of mythical achievement.